Choosing what to watch.
Night after night.
The flicking through.
The endless searching. It's a nightmare.
We want to help you.
On our brand new podcast, Off the Telly, we share what we've been watching. Gladiators.
Loads of games, loads of fun, loads of screaming. Lovely.
Off the Telly with me, Joanna Page.
And me, Natalie Cassidy. So your evenings can be a little less searching.
And a lot more watching.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. I'm Alasdair Lamont, and in this special episode we'll preview the third Old Firm derby of the season.
It's the most iconic rivalry in the world.
And a chance for Kyogo. How on earth did that come through to him? And he scores! And it comes fighting through. Goal! Paulo Bernardo lights up the derby with a magnificent strike from the edge of the area. Maida wants it, he decides to go it alone! And what an outstanding goal that is! Kyogo Furuhashi! Tavernier's gone for goal, he's found it as well! It's an incredible strike from James Tavernier!
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, I'm joined for this one, first of all, by the former Rangers midfielder Graham Dorrans. Graham, I gather you're plying your trade down the leagues a wee bit these days with Johnston Borough. How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's been a little bit different going down the leagues and playing at that level, but something that I was keen to get involved in once I spoke to the guys that were there and get involved in a little project I've going. So a bit young for me to hang up the boots, so I thought I'd keep going and just keep myself fit. Good stuff. Another young man who has hung up the boots, albeit came out of retirement temporarily a few weeks ago. Charlie Mulgrew played over 200 times for Celtic. Charlie, you're having to content yourself with an elite game of five-a-sides these days, aren't you?
Oh, aye, great game. It's actually, the mobility's that bad. It's a sixes game and a fives pitch we play.
That sounds right up my street.
It's more resembles walking football, so I feel good because I've just recently retired and it's enjoyable.
And my final guest, Tom English. Tom, what sort of level are you playing at these days?
I'm playing at a very low level, so low that it's invisible to the naked eye. So I'm going to come out of retirement. At some point and play five-a-sides. Charlie, get me a game. Graham, you can get me a game somewhere. You can teach me how to play the game for a start and then get me a game.
You'd fit in perfectly with our game.
We'll get on to the serious stuff and discuss the Old Firm fixture fully in a moment. But first, let's remind ourselves of some recent meetings between the two sides.
Listen, Celtic Rangers, Rangers Celtic, they're always important games. I understand, the magnitude of these games always.
Lovely touch by O'Reilly. Throws it back for Kyogo on the turn and he scores! Barisic looks up, puts the left foot ball in. It's a really good ball. The header's in. It's in. And it's Tavernier again. Celtic play on. Rangers stop. Maida cross and there's the goal. Unbelievable for Celtic. Through goes Sakala up against the goalkeeper, round the goalkeeper, and he rolls it home. And a chance for Kyogo. How on earth did that come through to him? And he scores! Kyogo Furuhashi scores! Copeland Road End at Ibrox.
I said before the game to them, listen, what I need my men to do. You need to come here, 50,000 rent for blood. You need to come and play like a man.
The Celtic supporters, 60,000 of them, give or take, around the stadium with their scarves held aloft.
They don't like us here, but to be honest, I get more energy out of that.
Kyogo, Maida wants it, decides to go it alone! And what an outstanding goal that is! Kyogo Furuhashi with a derby classic here!
Philippe, what did you make of that match? Did the better team win?
You want to get a reaction or something? Did you think that the better team win?
Some great games there. Sunday, though, is going to be absolutely huge. I think Kenny Miller, it was, just recently described it as the biggest Old Firm match in over a decade. Graham, I'll come to you first. Would you go along with Kenny Miller in that regard?
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with that. For a long time, Celtic have dominated in the competitions and titles that they've won. I think they've won 10 out of the last 11. So, huge opportunity for, I think, especially Rangers to, if they go and win the game. I genuinely believe the winner of this game goes on to win the league. If Rangers can go and win the game in hand, they go 5 points ahead, and I think that would be too much with what's remaining. So yeah, I have to fully agree that it's probably the biggest derby in a long time, and probably more on Rangers' side because of how dominant Celtic have been in the last few years. As I said, I think the winner of it, especially if Rangers can go and win it, I think they'll go on and win the title.
Charlie, having said all that, Celtic have really not only dominated the league generally in recent years, but they've dominated this fixture in recent times as well. Rangers have just one win in 9, and even that one was effectively meaningless because Celtic had already won the league at the end of last season. So they come into this one having won the 2 previous already this season. Does that have a bearing on this game, do you think, at all?
I get the feeling that Celtic have a more experience in winning these games. I don't know if it's the manager, Brendan Rodgers, who's been so successful, obviously, at Celtic. But I do agree with Graham there. I think the winner of this game goes on to win the title. I think they can begin to see the finish line there. And I think that's important when you're at the Old Firm, because when you can begin to see the finish line, you know there's maybe your 4, 5, 6 wins away from winning the league. It becomes a bit easier. Doesn't mean the games are easier, it just means that you can see what you have to do and you know what you need to do. So I think the winner of this will win it. Does it give Celtic advantage of winning the last 2? Listen, I don't think it comes in it. I just feel like they do have more experience in winning these games, but it's a huge game for both teams. 2 teams will be up for it. Rangers, you'd imagine, know it's their chance to get a wee stretch at the top if they win the game in hand as well, and they know that's deep down, that's probably going a large way towards winning it. So it's going to be a good game.
Should be. Tom, how do you think both sides will be feeling coming into this one? Does one come into it in better fettle, would you say?
It's difficult to gauge it, Al. You'd say maybe Rangers go in better, with a better feel good. You know, they've under Clement, they've won 19 league games, lost 2, drawn 1. They have more points. I think it's 7 or 8 more points this year in the league than Celtic have. So they have a bit more momentum. So you maybe, and home advantage, you know, that can be very significant. But at the same time, Celtic and Brendan Rodgers are, in the nicest possible sense, old firm animals, and that they win most of these games. They know what it takes to win these games. So you can't downplay that either. They find, even when they're not playing well under Brendan Rodgers, they still won old firm games. So it's huge. I agree. It's the biggest old firm game in the league in at least 10 years. And if Rangers win it, as the boys are saying, they go 5 points clear as long as they back it up with another win against Dundee. That's five points clear with what would be 6 games left. They've dropped 8 points in 22 games under Clement. So that would be a hell of a stretch for Celtic to reel them in from that position. But they may not have to do that because you keep going back to Rodgers and he finds a way. Celtic they've had a difficult season. Rodgers has had a difficult season, way more difficult than I think he expected it was going to be. He's spent a lot of time, in disagreements with say the Green Brigade and journalists. The daily newspapers, the latest one, is a bit of a standoff there. It's been a bit kind of thorny for Brendan Rodgers this season, but they're still right there. You know, even allowing for all the injuries that they've had, they're still right there. If they win at the weekend, you have to make them hot favourites to go on and win a league.
If you look back to that first Old Firm game of the season, Graham, back in September, Kyogo winning it with that fabulous strike, as he so often has popped up in these games. If you had told Rangers fans at that stage, or maybe slightly later in the month when they were beaten by Aberdeen and Michael Beale left the premises, if you told them at that stage they would be in a genuine title race, I don't think many would have believed you, would you?
Probably not. I think if you look back to that game, I think before that, going into it, I think that within the 2 managers, I think Brendan Rodgers was the one that found himself under a little bit of pressure. If Rangers were to go on and win that game, who knows, it could have been Brendan Rodgers that was in trouble of losing his job, but turned out Celtic won the game and Michael Beale lost his job. I think the games this season and recently have been decided by big players in big moments, and Celtic have found that within mainly Kyogo stepping up when he's needed. So I think for Rangers going into this game, they need to find that big player, whether that's Dessers or Silva or Lundstrom, Cantwell, whatever attacking options that Philip Clement goes with. Rangers players need to step up and be the difference maker, because I think that's been the difference in the games. Both this season, especially the one at Ibrox, lacked a little bit of quality. And again, as I said, Kyogo was the one that stepped up. Celtic were probably the more dominant side at Celtic Park in the fixture after that. And then Rangers lose a man. James Tavernier scores a great free kick. And for the last 5 minutes of the game, Rangers could have maybe went on and nicked a 2-2 draw. But I think for me, the most important thing in the game on Sunday is the Rangers players need to step up and be that difference maker.
Charlie, if I can hark back to 2011 when you were involved in a similar situation under Neil Lennon, on that occasion Rangers actually overhauled Celtic to come back and win it, but it feels like a similar type of battle. It genuinely could go either way, but you touched on it earlier. To what extent, people like Callum McGregor, who have been over the course so many times, to what extent do you feel that experience could prove pivotal in these final few games, and particularly on Sunday?
It's huge. Callum McGregor is somebody, not just for his experience, his ability, the difference he makes to that Celtic team in that number 6 holding midfield position and making the team tick, in possession, out of possession, speaking to his team, motivating his team before the game, just being a presence in amongst that. He's Celtic's best player. Between him and Carter Vickers, I think that if they two are available for Celtic, it's huge. It's a massive, massive step in the right direction if Celtic can get they two playing. Callum McGregor's proved in the past, even when he's not going through a great spell, earlier on at Ibrox, he just appeared after getting a bit of stick and he just absolutely dominated the game in that centre midfield, that role. And if Rangers want to get any of the game, if Callum McGregor's playing, they're going to need to stop him. He's a huge player for Celtic.
Charlie, if Callum McGregor is 70% fit, do you still put him in there?
Yeah, well, there's so much to that, Tom. I think that if you're talking about an Achilles injury or a calf injury, I don't think you can risk it if it's 70% fit, because then you risk losing Callum for the rest of the season, and there's still an Old Firm game to be played and there's plenty of football to be played. So I think it depends if it's a kick or it's a one that he's proved in the past where you can wear a mask. If it's an impact injury and it's not a muscle injury, you can maybe take the risk because the chances of him getting a connection or hit is pretty slim, and even if he does, he can still potentially recover. If it's a muscle injury, especially done by the Achilles or the calf, you risk losing the player for the rest of the season. So I don't think that's an option. I think that they'll know they'll only play him if he's 100% fit and ready to go, because of the great medical team there and the manager and the coaching staff know that how important it is for the team going forward. So I don't think they should, and I don't think they will play him if he's not 100% fit.
Graham, I can only imagine you'll be a big admirer of the way that Callum McGregor plays. And I was at Livingston on Sunday when Rio Hatate came back into the Celtic midfield and looked like he'd never been away. For you, regardless almost of who plays for Rangers, is a big part of it how Rangers deal with those players, assuming, well, Hatate you would assume will be fine. If McGregor makes it, is it about how they deal with that?
I think Rangers need to first and foremost concentrate on themselves, but as you mentioned there, that's Celtic's big players. Callum McGregor, he's done it for a long time, especially in these matches. He's the heartbeat of the Celtic side. He's the heartbeat of everything he does. But for me, it would be a risk to bring him back in, as Charlie said, if he wasn't 100% fit, especially that Hatate's been out for a while, McGregor's been out for a while. If you put the two of them in there, it's a risk. Is it a risk worth taking? I don't know, as Charlie said, it depends what that injury is. But like I said, they're the players that make Celtic tick. So, yeah, Rangers will need to find a way of stopping that when Callum McGregor's in there. He wants to get on the ball and dominate the game. But like I said, Rangers players need to be that one. John Lundstrom's been fantastic for Rangers, but these are the games you need to see John Lundstrom step up and be the dominant midfielder in there, go on and take the ball and dictate the game and take the game to Celtic. So, yeah, Rangers will need to concentrate on themselves, but they'll also need to be wary of Celtic players and their ability as well, like McGregor and Hatate in there.
On that front then, in terms of Rangers personnel, obviously we saw Sima coming back off the bench, who'd been such a big player for them first half of the season. Do you see him starting? And otherwise in that Rangers team, I mean, I guess the back four, if Yilmaz is fit, probably picks itself. What are the other selection issues you see for Rangers?
Yeah, probably only that one, whereas it's Sterling or if it's Seaman that's come back in. But I think Seaman's missed a lot of football recently as well. But so I think Philip Clement will probably go with Sterling in there. You know, when you look back at the bigger games and that Rangers have played against Benfica as well, he's brought Sterling into play in that wide area. And that might help James Tavernier deal with Maeda going the other way as well, because Sterling's game, his work rate and his power getting forward, getting up and down on the side will really help James Tavernier on the side as well. And then I think Lawrence will come back in as well. I think obviously Cantwell played at the weekend, but again, going back to the bigger games that Rangers have played in, I think Lawrence has played in them as well. So I think he'll come in. As I said, I think Sterling will be wide and Lawrence will come in that 10 position. And as you say, the back four probably picks itself if Yilmaz is fit.
Charlie, what about Kyogo, who's a real... I mean, he's been a massive player for Celtic, generally speaking, since he signed, obviously. Maybe not quite as good this season, you could argue, as the previous two, but he's got 7 and 11 against Rangers, scored in both the games so far this campaign. You've got to imagine he could well be a key figure for them again at Ibrox on Sunday.
I think that he definitely starts at Ibrox. I know he does come in and had a couple of spells where he stepped up when maybe Kyogo's not been at it and scored vital goals away to Motherwell to win the game. But I think Kyogo starts. I mean, he's not having as good a season as he did the season before. You could argue he's maybe not playing the same type of game in terms of coming a wee bit deeper to get the ball instead of playing on the last line. I think recently stepped up and been good against Rangers. The last time he scores a great goal. Mm-hmm. And he seems to step up and score goals against Rangers. I think there's no doubt about it that he'll start. I think he's got to start. I think the Celtic team probably picks itself now. They seem to have a kind of settled team. Atati coming back's brilliant. But yeah, no, definitely you'd imagine Kyogo starting with his record in Old Firm games. If Celtic are going to get a result, he'll probably play a part in that.
Tom, where do you see the game being won and lost on Sunday?
I see it being won and lost in the head. I think this is a psychological game. And I think if Rangers can handle the expectation on them and, you know, the potential prize on offer here, you know, it's a 2-point lead, could become a 5-point lead. Rangers must be able to see the finishing line now. They must win this game, win again midweek, and they're not there, but they're close to being there. Where Clement has been excellent, he hasn't allowed Rangers to get ahead of themselves. He's kept them very focused, very grounded, on pain of a slaughtering, I would say, behind the scenes. I did a thing with Jack Butland not that long ago, and he pointed out how focused and how much clarity Clement brings. And in the past, I think, for quite a lot of years, including the Beale years, the Beale months, Rangers players and Rangers coaches have lost the run of themselves. They've talked themselves up. They said, we're the better squad. There's no evidence to suggest. In fact, every scrap of evidence suggests that Celtic have been better over many years than Rangers. Yet the Rangers, this kind of, this chutzpah that they had, this kind of hubris, there's been none of that under Clement. He doesn't tolerate any of that nonsense. He doesn't want to hear it. So I think he's kept them very focused on what they're doing game to game to game. But they are getting close to the end now. And that's when the pressure comes on, doesn't it? It's when you can see maybe a title down the line, that's when the pressure really comes on. So I think we know Celtic can handle the pressure because they've handled it for many, many years, especially if McGregor's in the team, especially if Kyogo's in the team, because this fixture does something for him. He could be anonymous in this match and then he could score. And then that's the deciding moment. So Celtic have been over the course. We know that their mentality can be and has been very strong. We don't know about Rangers. So I think on paper, they're very evenly matched. It's who handles the occasion, who handles the psychology and the heat the best.
Graham, I think you couldn't fail to be impressed by the job that Philippe Clement has done since he's come to Rangers, given especially the kind of chaotic nature of where they were when he did come in. But clearly, as Tom's sort of getting at there, this is when it really matters. Do you see him as the kind of manager who will be able to get his players to keep that sort of focus and stay cool when most required?
Definitely. Here, Tom touched on it there. Since he's come in, there's been a real focus, and you can see in the interviews that he does that he doesn't let players or the squad get ahead of themselves. It's almost a cliche one game at a time mentality, and he only focuses on what's in front of him. And yeah, Rangers probably have struggled in this fixture recently, and Celtic have been more dominant and had more experience in it. But I think with Philippe Clement in the dugout, Rangers will be more focused and more aware of the job in hand. And listen, we know how the occasion is going to go. It's at Ibrox, it'll be a full house. There won't be any Celtic supporters in the ground, so there'll be real pressure on Rangers to go and take the game to Celtic. But Clement will have that game plan in mind, and he'll have a real focus and get on with winning the games, because as I said, Celtic have been there, they've came to Ibrox this season, they've won the game, so they'll have a game plan, and their players they'll know that they can go there and win. But as we touched on there, I think the Rangers players they have to know now the importance of this game and the importance of going and getting 3 points in this game.
Celtic could barely have a better man at the helm though, Charlie, given Brendan Rodgers' track record in Old Firm derbies. 12 wins from 15, just one defeat in there. What's the secret to that success?
You're right enough. He seems to come alive when the pressure's on. The last Old Firm game, as Graham touched on earlier, he was right up against it. He was getting a bit of stick, and he seemed to come out swinging with the result and the performance and the dominance. The secret, I think, between the two teams for me in the past and this year is Celtic's ruthlessness when they get chances. I mean, no disrespect to Dessers, but it seems to me that he needs 3 and 4 chances in an Old Firm game. He proved the last time in any game before he scores. Where I feel like Celtic, Kyogo takes that chance. It's a half chance at best. He's outside the box, puts it in the top bin, falls to Bernardo, he scores. There seems to be that ruthlessness in the final third for Celtic, and I don't know if Rangers quite have that. And in the game against Celtic, they won't create as many chances as they usually will. So, going back to your question on Brendan Rodgers, how is he so that's just the coach he is. I think he knows when it comes to the big occasions, he steps up and he makes sure his team's there to be counted, and he's proved that he can win these big games. He must just know what to say to his players at the right moment. He knows the tactics to use. He knows what Rangers are going to bring to the game, and he's got his team ready and prepared for that. His first spell at Celtic, he was very, very ruthless in terms of team selection. If you remember rightly, they had like a starting 11 that had been unbeaten in his first year up to Christmas. And then they had a pre-season trip, and I'd heard that they'd played 11v11 against each other, and the team that had been played against the other team, and the other team beat them. And then from then on, he sensed a bit of complacentness from the Celtic players, and he changed the team. You remember, I think Boyata came into the team then, and a few other players came in, and he just seemed to know that moment where maybe the team needs change, or somebody needs to play, or somebody's maybe getting complacent. So he's a good manager. He knows his players. He knows his man management's good. And he's definitely the man for the job at Celtic, and for these experience in these Old Firms coming up.
If you look at his record against Rangers, a lot of the games from his first incarnation were kind of turkey shoots. You know, it was an excellent Celtic team against a Rangers team that were all over the shop, right? It wasn't a fair fight, and there were some real drubbings there. Since he's come back, he's won these ones this time. He's winning now. It's more of a fair fight, and he's still winning them this time. So I think it's quite impressive. The earlier games, even though he's winning them 4-0, 5-0, 5-1, I think this season, and I think if he does win the league this season, Brendan Rodgers, it'd be interesting to ask him where would it rank with all of the trophies that he has won at Celtic, because this is toe-to-toe now, and it's never been toe-to-toe for Brendan Rodgers in the league so far in his time. I would imagine that the satisfaction he would get from it, given all the injuries, given all the problems in the transfer windows, and the kind of bit of disquiet behind the scenes, and the fans, and all the rest of the stuff that he's had to deal with, if he wins the league this season, I would imagine, maybe not better than the Invincible season, but I'd say he would derive some serious satisfaction if he was to get this over the line. That's a big if. Yeah,
you've got to imagine, given the criticism that's come his way, it's going to feel all the sweeter. Right, let's get to the nub of the matter and prediction time. I don't think everyone's kind of agreed, I suppose, that it's a pivotal game, that the winner of it will probably go on to win the league. Graham, I'm going to come back to you first again. Do you see it being a Rangers victory? And I just want to put in there also, if it were to be a draw, who does that favour, if either?
In my opinion, I think a draw would favour Celtic, because although Rangers have got the game in hand, it means the last Old Firm goes back to Celtic Park, that they would probably be going into this more confident of winning. As I touched on earlier, I think Rangers have to go hell for leather and win this game, because I think if they do, it'll be a long way back for Celtic. It's going to be a tough game, it'll be a tight game, it'll be cagey, as Charlie touched on, that Celtic have just had a bit more know-how in how to win these games recently. So, as I mentioned, Rangers have to find someone that can stand up and be the difference maker. I think it's going to be really tight. It'll be all about who takes their chances. Previous games, Celtic will be the one that have been taking the chances, but I think Rangers will come out on top in this one. I think it'll be very tight, but I think Rangers will win this one 2-1, I think, for me.
Charlie, I'm going to predict that you've got a different stance.
Yes, I think it'll be a draw. I think both teams wouldn't be too disappointed with a draw, so I think it'll be a 1 each draw. I think it could potentially slightly favour Celtic, but I don't think Rangers will be that disappointed. Both teams might settle for that. Yeah, I think it'll be a draw, 1 each.
Okay, and final words to you, Mr. English. How do you see it panning out on Sunday?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's so many kind of imponderables here, you know? Who handles the occasion? Is Callum McGregor 100% fit? Rangers, the home crowd is a huge support, but it can be a huge problem if they go 1-0 down. All of these factors that happen in game, who knows? From this remove days out, I look at the potential Rangers team and I look at the potential Celtic team and I look at the little bit more momentum maybe that Rangers have. If I was to pick a winner, I'd probably go Rangers by a goal, but I'd be minded by what Charlie says there. I think it could be a draw. But who knows? My predictions are hopeless anyway, Al, so I don't know what you're asking me for. I mean, it's
just for the crack.
Just to get me into trouble. I think there's something about the Rangers team. They have grit now. They seem to have a lot more nous about them. With Diamanda coming into the team, Sterling, Sima, scores lots of goals before he got injured. Dessers, for all that we complain about him, he's got 12 league goals for Clement. I know he misses chances, but he scores too. So I think Rangers are in a good place, home advantage. If I was to, back to the wall, I would say Rangers to win by a goal.
Well, we shall see. It's been an epic podcast. There's so much more we could get into, but we better wrap things up for now. My thanks to Graham Dorrans and Charlie Mulgrew and Tom English for joining us. Remember, you can hear full commentary of Rangers v Celtic on Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland from 11:30 on Sunday. We'll have live coverage also on the BBC Sports Scotland website and mobile app. And Sports Scene will have the highlights on the BBC Scotland channel at 7:30. And Liam McLeod will be back here on the Scottish Football Podcast with Alan Stubbs and Kenny Miller first thing on Monday morning with analysis and reaction to whatever transpires on Sunday afternoon. Enjoy it and goodbye for now.
Sacked in the Morning is back.
I got the ball and I put it on the spot, and it was literally the best feeling I've ever had. And believe me, I spent a lot of money on feelings in my life.
Joining Craig Levine and myself, Amy Irons, will be some of football's top managers, best characters and most colourful players as we reveal what exactly goes on inside the dugouts and dressing rooms up and down the country.
We had a lad the other week and I saw him, he was playing the first half, he was playing the opposite wing. He had a set of gloves on and short sleeves. And I thought to myself, I can't wait till next half till he comes near me.
As the manager comes in, he smashes the door open, the jacket's off, shirt sleeves are up. We're thinking, here we go. We're all nudging each other like school kids and giggling.
Sacked in the Morning. Listen now on BBC Sounds.